I'm just shaping it a little bit more before I place it into the bowl. And then I'll cover that here in a moment. Same thing here. And just as I had done before, pick up the whole thing and then put the round, smooth side down into the covered bowl. I'm going to just pinch that seam. This will be the bottom of the loaf. This dough here has been sitting for just over 18 hours and at 64, 65 degrees. It's easy to think about how you can make bread or dough warmer, but perhaps it's more difficult to think about how to make it cooler. We ended up putting it in the oven. We put a bowl of ice, I'd say 2 cups of ice underneath on the lower level, and then up above put both of our bowls of proofing dough. That brought it down to around 64 degrees. And the result is they've risen, and we're going to turn them out now onto a peel and a cookie sheet. One of the things we have to do in order to make sure that it doesn't stick is spread semolina very liberally over the peel and the cookie sheet so that we have the dough sliding very easily onto the pizza stone and onto the stainless steel sheet. You don't want your loaf sticking. This is the loaf that we put in the brot form. So we have to carefully remove the cover first, which we had floured very carefully. You can see that it really rose. I'm going to turn it out onto our peel. It's sticking slightly. I was careful to put liberal amounts of flour onto the both the ball of dough and onto the bread form. So sticking a little bit still. The alternative form, linen, also liberally coated with lots and lots of bread flour. This one you can lift the bowl first and then take care of the cloth. The next step gives the bread a little more character. Most of the loaf will be white because of the flour, and then the parts that we slit are going to be darker, much darker. What I have here is a razor. You can also use a very sharp knife. This is slicing actually fairly easily. And here, instead of making a radial pattern, I'm going to do some cross hatching. So I'm going to try to cut right across. And maybe one more here. And then instead of straight across, sort of a slant, a diamond shape. And if it looks a little messy right now, well, it is. But you'll see how it turns out once we pull it out of the oven finished. So there are our 2 loaves. They're ready to place in the oven. You want to spray to mist inside the oven because you'll allow the crust of the bread to stay open a little longer and allow more of the moisture out. About 15 squirts. And 5 or 6 more squirts. We're going to time this for 5 minutes, and it's going to be at 500 for 5 minutes. Then we're going to bring the temperature down to 460 for at least 25 more minutes. It's been 5 minutes since we started baking. I've just turned down the oven to 460 and we've set the clock for 25 minutes. After the bread has been baking for about 15 minutes, that is about halfway through the baking, you'll want to switch them. Our loaves, let's see here, put our stone on the lower rack and our tray on the higher rack. Our bread has been baking for 30 minutes. We're going to take out the loaves now and check them. Is it dark golden brown in the places where the crust is peeking through? Somewhat. And the other test, does it have a hollow sound when you tap on it? I'm going to call this not quite done. Same thing. Is it dark golden brown? And does it have a hollow sound? That has a hollow sound. Because the other loaf wasn't ready, we had to put it back in. Instead of leaving it at 460 degrees Fahrenheit, however, you want to bring it down a little bit more, perhaps to 445, for another 10 minutes or so, and then check it again. We're going to bring the second loaf out as well. You can see that it's a little darker than it was before. It's hollower sounding, perhaps not as hollow as this one sounds. Now you may be tempted to saw into one of these, but as our guru, Bertinet, says, you want to let it cool completely, which will take 2 or 3 hours, and then enjoy it. We hope that your loaves are even more beautiful than ours, and we wish you a happy journey with sourdough. Enjoy!